Hello, friends. Joe Chapeau here, the Executive Director of the Unitarian Universalist Young Adult Revival Network. And today I want to draw your attention to the Article 2 Study Commission. Alright, we're going to get kind of in the weeds here, folks, so bear with me. So, our religion in the United States is a covenant of 1,000 congregations. They came together and created the Unitarian Universalist Association. That is the national level body that coordinates and supports all the congregations here in the United States. There's a Canadian Unitarian Council as well as an international one. Of course, these things are a little more complicated, but that's the essence. Now, the 7 principles of our religion come from the bylaws of the Unitarian Universalist Association, the UUA. Article 2 is the specific one where all 7 are listed. Now, for those who don't been living under a rock or who are new to our religion, all love to you, don't get me wrong. There's an ongoing movement to adopt an 8th principle that essentially is about a commitment to dismantling white supremacy and other forms of oppression. Now, a lot of people have opposed this because some think the 7 principles are perfect, that they don't need to be changed, that they never should be changed, that it's so much more that this 8th principle is so specific, and there's people who suffer from or have one oppressed minority identity who thinks that without that being named, the other ones, that naming white supremacy is not appropriate. Most of those are not valid arguments. But one that I personally think has been is that why are we just adding an 8th principle? They really all kind of need to be updated. And I am so happy to tell you that the Article 2 Study Commission believes that, because they have recently announced a new set of 7 principles that incorporates the 8th principle, but also radically updates and expands the whole notion of our 7 principles. I'll use one just as an example. I recently had the opportunity to speak at a very tiny congregation in Kentucky. It was on Zoom. I zoomed in. And they asked me to come and speak about the 6th principle. I was like, sure, but like most of you, I don't have these things memorized. I just try to live them. While investigating the 6th principle, I learned a lot. And let me tell you what I learned. See, the original principles were written in 1961. And the original version of the 6th principle reads, "To implement our vision of one world by striving for a world community founded on the ideals of brotherhood, justice, and peace." Already, you can kind of feel why that didn't work for so long. Obviously, the term brotherhood, very common in the 60s and before, not really in wide use today outside of literal male-only organizations. But also the idea of to implement our vision. It's a very pompous thing to think that Unitarian Universalist vision for the world community is the one that should be placed down on top of what's already there. So a couple decades later, in 1984, it was rewritten. And it reads now, "The goal of a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all." You may notice that also sounds a little weird, because without the contextual language to promote and affirm the goal of a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, it's a kind of not a really good principle. Goals aren't principles. That's a thing you achieve. A principle is lived. And sure, I am someone who lives as a member of a world community where I strive to create peace, liberty, and justice for all. This principle does not inspire me to do that. So, like many of the other principles, the Article 2 Study Commission decided to kind of really try to make these things better. And if you look at the new set of principles, you're going to quickly realize the sixth one, it just doesn't exist like it used to. It's not this like, oh, let's create this world community and we're going to just go out and build it and put our vision into it. No. Instead it shows up in other places. One of the new principles is just called justice, and it's all about dismantling the systems of oppression. Another part of that is you'll see the term community of communities in there, because that's what the world really is. It's sure there's the idea of the one world community, but ultimately it's just a patchwork of many different communities. In fact, we ourselves are a patchwork of many communities. I may be a Unitarian Universalist, but I'm also a San Franciscan, and I'm a Chapeau, and all three of those are different communities than I am part of. So, I really, really encourage you to check out the proposed new principle language. And if you have time, this Wednesday at 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 Pacific, the Article 2 Study Commission will be hosting a feedback session just for young adults. So you should be there. I probably will. And then, of course, if you got time, at 6:30 p.m. Pacific that very night will be the Yarn West Coast worship. So that and all more is in this newsletter. There's tons of articles. I love the memes for the Spirit Halloween costume. I definitely had to get us in on that. And if you have anything you want to submit to our newsletter for publication, just send us an email. So with all that said, happy Halloween, have a great November, and I'll see you online. Bye!